Greetings all, Paladin here, coming to you Friday before the Labor Day weekend. Hope you enjoyed that little abbreviated intro that we've come up with the White Hat Media Group, and then the little stroll down the hall to my office. We will be incorporating that into all of our videos from here on out. And there's a second half sort of to that intro that we'll show you once we start naming the video titles. You'll see the second half when you inside my office. Anyway, we have not stopped. We've been dark for a while, basically because we're waiting for all the releases to be finished. I know back in July the PIO, I believe, for LVMPD indicated that there would be 5 to 6 more releases. Then Lombardo did the I believe he did the final report. Let's see, when was that? I think August 3rd maybe, and said there were 2 to 3 more releases, and I think we've had actually 4 since then. So I would think that we're nearing the end. We have not we have not stopped. This is sort of a 24/7 investigation, or at least it seems that way to some of us. So we are still on it. We're still in the game. We're into it. We're on it. So just have faith. We'll get to it. Like I say, we're waiting for the releases to be finished, and then we're going to start blasting out some videos. I think we've got right now 16 planned. We've got one that is in the final stages of editing, and boy, I'll tell you what, this is going to knock your socks off. One of our team members did this on their own, and just got to see it today. It's 50 minutes. It is fantastic. Some great work. They know who they are, so I think you're all going to like that. Okay, and speaking of that, team members, we've got about 8 to 10 people that we work with in the group, and some of us are full-time, some of us are part-time, some of us are consultants. Some of us are people that we go to for information because of their certain expertise in certain matters. So, and everybody's anonymous, okay? And that's by design. We're keeping all this information confidential. We're keeping it all close to the vest, and that's because that's the way everyone on the team wants it to be. So if you hear that people are working with us and they're actually talking about it, then they probably aren't. At least they aren't on the team, so to speak. I mean, I've got people that are messaging me, and I'm corresponding with some people, other YouTube creators, other people who are out there in the community who are working on this, but they are not on the team. So just wanted to put that out there. I think you can make your own determination what that means, okay? Just want to take a macro view on this for just a minute. If you're really serious about trying to solve this, you're really researching and you're really investigating, don't be too quick to call Paddock names. You know, I see some people calling him deranged and crazy and mad and getting all emotional, and you know, all that does is it just displays how immature you are in looking at this. Because if we can come up with in the final analysis that Paddock did this, he acted alone, or Paddock did this and he had help, or Paddock didn't do it, then we can, once we get that determined, then we can use all the emotion that we've got in there to express our feelings about who did it. So I just encourage everybody to kind of dial that rhetoric back, because it doesn't serve a purpose. You want to do this objectively if you're really doing the work, and I know this is not what most of you do for a living. It is what I do for a living, and so I've learned a long time ago that you got to take all that emotion out of it and look at it from a factual basis and go from there. Because if you start getting your emotions involved, then you're going to make mistakes, you're going to miss things, you're going to emphasize certain things that you shouldn't be. So anyway, enough on that. All right. I want to get into a little bit about the final report. And one thing that I was looking for, and I didn't think we were going to get it, but I didn't want to talk too much about it until I see the final report, and that was the ballistics. There's no ballistics, and that has to do with the science of the firearms and the ammunition, the bullets, the bullet casings, and that bullet fragments and that kind of thing. And I'm not going to go into the weeds on this. I probably will in another video, but I'll give you the short version, and that is that you should be able to take the bullets and bullet fragments recovered from the victims, and according to the autopsies, they recovered fragments or whole bullets from 46 of the 58 victims. In addition to that, I'm sure that some of the victims who were in the hospital who survived, I'm sure there were bullet fragments and bullets taken from them. And so you take those and you match them caliber-wise to the shell casings in the guns that were found in 134 and 135. Okay, that's step number one. Step number two then would be proving that Paddock, if you're trying to convict Paddock, you would prove that Paddock was the one who fired those weapons, okay, or fired weapons. And the way in which you would do that is you would do chemical tests on his hands, on his cheek, on his face, on his neck, on his clothes, even. And I know he wore gloves, but you can get him off of gloves. You can get him off of his shirt. So you would have been able to prove from forensic chemical tests that he fired those weapons, okay, or at least he did fire weapons. Now, without that, I guarantee you that a good defense attorney could get Paddock off the hook. Because in a criminal case, you got to have all 12 jurors have to agree. So they have to all agree to acquit. At the same time, they have to all agree to convict. And if one juror holds out either way, then it's a mistrial. And then the prosecution has to decide where they want to refile the charges and go forward. And I think, if you're paying attention to the current events in Manafort, I don't know, he had 18 charges, I believe, they brought against him, and they were able to convict him on 8, and the other 10 they weren't, and the judge declared a mistrial on those 10 counts. So I think that's a good illustration. And I guarantee you, if you don't have the ballistics, which would be considered direct prima facie evidence, then you've got circumstantial evidence. You've got you might be able to prove that Paddock bought the guns. You might be able to prove that the room was registered in Paddock's name, but that's all circumstantial. If you can't put the guns in Paddock's hands, firing the weapons, the bullets that he fired ended up in victims, then you've really got a weak case. So anyway, I just wanted to cover that. Now, along those same lines, the court cases, okay. And I don't want to be disparaging to any of the victims, but the class action, I believe it's a class action against MGM. Okay, that will only be successful if you can prove or convince the jury, and of course the burden of proof is a little bit, it's based on a preponderance of the evidence, where in a criminal trial it's beyond a shadow of a doubt, or beyond reasonable doubt, excuse me. And the burden of proof is a little bit higher. Well, it's a lot higher actually in a criminal trial, as a criminal case, as opposed to a civil case, in which it should be. But if there's any information that would come out that would indicate that shots were not fired from 134 and 135, and they were fired from inside the venue or around the venue or anywhere besides Mandalay Bay, then that class action lawsuit that Catherine Lombardo is spearheading, is championing, that would have problems, because that's all based on negligence by Mandalay Bay. Okay, negligence on the bellhops and the bell captain, as far as assisting Paddock bringing in all the suitcases where the firearms and the ammunition supposedly was. Incumbent upon the video cameras all over the place in any casino and hotel in Las Vegas, up and down the strip. I mean, they've been known for that. The eye in the sky's been around for years and years and years. I mean, they're out front in that technology. So if all the video surveillance didn't catch it, the maids didn't catch it, the room service people didn't catch it, then that's negligence, and that's what they're going to try to prove. However, if like I say, if shots were fired from other areas or other places around the venue besides Mandalay Bay, that case has a problem. So just wanted to bring that up. And finally, I just want everybody to understand, and kind of, there's times when you have to sit back and kind of take a macro view of this from an evidentiary standpoint, and you got to ask yourself this question. There's not going to be a trial. There's not going to be a criminal trial against Stephen Paddock because he's deceased, or at least we think he is. So why can't they give us all the evidence that they've accumulated that would prove his guilt? Because they've redacted everything that they put out. Everything's redacted. The autopsies are redacted. The reports are redacted. The 9/11 calls are censored. The body cams have got issues, and we're going to prove that. We're going to prove that in our videos. We've got 16 videos that we plan on releasing at this point in time, and I'm sure that number is going to grow in the future. But let me just give one example, and I haven't seen this, and I could have missed it, but I don't think so. But in the releases where they release the witness statements and the dispatch logs and the police report, or the police officer reports, I didn't see one for Hancock, I didn't see one for Bitsko, I didn't see one for Newton, I didn't see one for O'Donnell, and some other officers who were, at the tip of the spear, so to speak, in the breach of the rooms at 135 and 134. These are the guys that are very important. Now, the final report does give you some sort of a synopsis of what they said, but that's, a guy like Hancock, a guy like Bitsko, a guy like Newton, O'Donnell, those guys their report would be multiple pages, okay? And in the final report, I think we've got maybe 2, 3, 4 paragraphs. So it's problematic. But anyway, I just want to, let that out, or put that out there so people can think about it, because, guys like me who do this for a living, that's the things that we catch. That's the things that we notice. And if we're missing those things, then that's a problem. So, these narrative people who spout the narrative, or who support the narrative, they're that's pretty easy. That's pretty lazy, and it's pretty cowardly, because you have issues with certain points of evidence, and they come up with some ridiculous notion that the wind blew the door shut and locked it, right? It's just ridiculous. It's just and it's cowardly, and it just doesn't serve the purpose. It doesn't advance the thinking or the community's attempts to try to figure this out, because there's victims, there's deceased victims, their families and friends, they're all victims. There's victims who were wounded and hurt. There are victims who survived. And then in a broader view, we're all victims, because we're victims of the lies that they've been telling, the lies that they've been spouting. So I think everybody needs to kind of sometimes step back and give it an overall view, because we're coming up on the year anniversary. We're almost a month away from that, and we still don't have answers. We still don't have answers. There's more questions. There's more questions than answers. Every time they release body cam footage, every time they release 9/11 calls, or when they have, it brings up more questions than it answers, and that's problematic. It's problematic. So anyway, I just want to keep everybody informed of that. We're going to probably release a video next week to kind of tell you which direction we're going to take this. So look for that. In the meantime, I want everybody to have a safe, happy, and fun holiday weekend. If you're traveling, be safe. Be careful out there on the road. This is kind of the end of the summer. It's kind of bittersweet to a certain degree. All the kids if they haven't already started school, they will be shortly. I think most of them have now gone back to school. So the summer's over, and so I want everybody to be safe, and look for us next week. We're going to start pumping this stuff out. Like I say, 16 videos. We may do 4 or 5 a month, maybe faster if we can get it done. So y'all be safe. Paladin out.